USA, Chi-City, and around the world. Welcome to another episode of Chicago's Intellectuals Podcast. And today, we have none other than the illustrious Mr. Nosa Bodie. How you doing, brother?
What's going on? How are you?
Oh, man, it's a long time coming, man. It's a long time coming. I'm very excited. So let's just jump right into it, man. Listen, let's talk a little bit about where you came up, your city, the neighborhood you grew up in, and what that was like.
For sure. Well, you know, I'm from Chicago, South Side, South Shore specifically. And, you know, growing up there, you know, you see a lot of stuff, you know, I remember we used to go to the Dominic's all the time on 71st Street, and then they closed that down, and the closest grocery store wasn't for miles. You know what I'm saying? You know, it just felt like nobody really cared about the area. It felt like, you know, the people that lived in that area didn't really care about themselves. There was a lot of violence, a lot of, you know, mess going on. And, you know, it was rough. It was rough for a little bit, you know. There were definitely a couple of times. I remember when I was like 15, you know, a group of kids that came up on me and tried to rob me. You know, and it's like, damn, you know, you need 8 guys to rob 2 young fellas. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least try and make it a fair fight. You know, it just, one of the biggest differences that I see, you know, moving out to New York and coming up to Harlem specifically is just that, you know, these guys out here, they got a street code. They got a respect for one another because they grew up together, and, you know, they be hanging out on the block, you know, and they're just chilling. Like, I never had the luxury of being able to do that when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's in a nutshell, bro. Yeah.
We used to go to the park, and you know, even my father was like nervous about letting me go up there because, you know, he didn't know, you know, who was around, or, you know, who would be coming up. You know, he was just like worried about my safety, and, you know, constantly having to look over your shoulder. It's definitely a stressful environment to be in.
Yeah. You know, I feel you, bro. You know, I'm a bit older than you, but my story is very similar. You know how it is, South Side of Chicago, very difficult. I often tell people that a native Chicagoan will use cognitions that people from the suburbs and other areas of the country don't even know that they have, right? We have these cognitions that people don't even know that they have. Like, we're constantly hearing gunshots, police sirens, fire trucks, ambulances. We're constantly hearing these things, and we constantly have to keep our heads on the swivel. So just being able to navigate Chicago as a young person, right? You said you were 15, is a skill in and of itself. Would you agree?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. So your academics, where did you go to school? Where did you go to, like, grammar school, high school?
So grammar school, I was bouncing around a little bit. I think I did K through 2nd at Pershing, over there on 35th, or is that 30? I can't quite remember where exactly it was. And then I went to Ancona, which is a Montessori school that is supposed to specialize in special needs kids, you know, kids that are on the spectrum, or, you know, ADHD, whatever. But, you know, a lot of prevalent people were sending their kids there, you know, from the Hyde Park neighborhood. And, you know, they kicked me out in 7th grade because they said I was too much of at the end of my 7th grade year, they kicked me out. An elementary school said I couldn't do one more year there because I was too much of a distraction to the other students. You know, it's called the specialized in giving attention to kids. It's like, you know, as a kid, I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand why they were saying those things. But as an adult, I'm like, yo, that was fucked up. Because, you know, like a private school, you're paying tuition and everything. So I must have been a badass kid or something. And then I finished off my 8th grade year at James Ward, and kind of close to like Chinatown area. And then I went to high school at Chicago High School for the Arts,
Yes.
Shy Arts. That's where I began my journey as a scholar artist, and
Yes.
continued that
Yeah.
on to go to DePaul to get my BFA in theater arts.
So let's just go back for a minute to the point where you were kicked out and how that affected you, right? Because as you well know, I've been dealing with children for a while with the youth program, and my research is children and adolescents, and I'm a clinical therapist for children and adolescents now. And, you know, you made the statement that you must have been a badass kid because, you know, they kicked you out and you didn't understand that. But you would be surprised at how often, especially public school officials, frame narratives about young people who are just active or who may have behavioral issues, right? But either way, they frame these narratives that often cause more harm. That's why I have to continue my research, right? That often, and most of the time, they're not adhering to the IEPs, right? They're not adhering to these things. And, you know, psych doctors are usually glad to put a kid on meds. You know, they're usually happy to do that. So, you know, that becomes counterproductive. So I just want to say to you, I've known you for quite a while and I never really considered you to be a bad kid. Like, I've dealt with bad kids. You know, I got bad kids. Well, I have children with questionable,
Ronnie, excuse me,
counterproductive behavior. We have these very unfortunate situations that happen in our communities, man. You know, so far you've mentioned food deserts. You know, you've mentioned like school officials not being prepared for children who may have different behaviors than they're used to. You know, and that's really all it is, right?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, a lot of times.
I think that the real issue with me was if a teacher was telling me to do something that I didn't want to do, I didn't feel was like right. Like, I mean, I just, nobody could ever force me to do things that I didn't want to do.
Yes.
You know, and I guess, you know, they didn't have a child that met them with that much resistance.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, oh shit, like how do we deal with this? And, you know, they just ran out of patience. But whatever the case may be, you know, that's what they did.
It's all phases of our development.
It's just really funny though. They actually named the back alley, if I'm not mistaken, of the school after the principal that had you know, kind of expelled me, if you would. Really? And you know, I was looking at her, I was like, what did she do? She don't seem that great to me.
So they basically erected her as a hero.
You know?
They do, bro. So so now you graduate high school.
Mm-hmm.
And well, along the way we met. I think you were, I don't even know if you were in high school when we met. What was it, 7th or 8th grade? Were you in high school?
If I'm being honest, I can't quite remember the first time we met exactly. Mm-hmm. I just remember it was over by the forum.
So there was this event where they were celebrating the ancestors at the Washington Park Fieldhouse.
Okay.
Formal dinner. They had a formal dinner. They had everything set up, catered food and everything. And I happened to be sitting at the table with your family. I sat at the table with your family, and that's the day that we met.
Okay.
Yeah, you were this little scrawny kid, you know, that came off kind of introverted. I found out I was wrong about that later. You know what I mean? And
I only talk to the people I like.
Yeah, exactly. And somehow you ended up coming to our program, to our youth program. I think it was a combination of meeting you and the fact that your father was a big supporter of the program.
Yeah, Well, because my father used to go to the firefighter forums that were in the park as well.
Yes.
And that was the first time that I remember meeting you. And you would kind of told him about the idea and the concept, and he was just very, very much so with it. But yeah, I mean, that should change my life, man.
Really?
That should change my life.
Yeah. And I just remember, once you were there, there was a spirit of like finding your voice, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That just seemed like the spirit that was in those places, in those spaces, right? And you're not the only person that has told me that, that forum was the place that I found my voice. As a matter of fact, I interviewed Sierra White last week. I don't know if you know her. And I never knew this, but she said that, as a result of being a part of the youth program, CYADC, she and her cousins, felt really fortunate to have the experience of going downtown. And she said that that was the first time that they had ever been downtown when we were at Columbia College, right? Yep. And I never knew that. And she ended up going to the same university that you went to, bro.
Oh, she went to DePaul as well?
She went to DePaul, but she was in the accounting department.
Okay, so she was probably taking classes downtown and stuff.
Yeah. So now you come through the program, you ended up graduating high school, you're developing your professional and personal identities, and now you're in undergrad at DePaul.
Mm-hmm.
Experience like?
Tough. It was tough. I thought that it was going to be easy because my high school's curriculum was mirrored after DePaul's curriculum.
Okay.
But my issues didn't lie necessarily in academics at all. They mostly lied in how I related to my classmates. I felt like an outlier my entire life. I've always been kind of like feeling like I'm like different from everybody else, and if everybody else is going right, I'm gonna choose left. And not for the sake of being different, but just because I'm into variation and experiences, and I'm always wanting to try new things, and my classmates were not receptive to that. And also, we had a class of like 24 to 30 kids. We started off with about 32 kids or something like that, but by the time we all graduated, we only had 24 kids in the class. And I was one of initially 4 that dropped down to 3, including me, Black kids in the program. So, and none of them were from Chicago. So, when we came in early on, I was like, yo, I'm from Chicago. This is my experience. And some of the things that I talked about, they couldn't fathom, or it scared them or whatever. So, it was very difficult to nurture and like grow relationships there. Honestly, I don't really talk to too many people that I went to college with. Because of that. And it was a culture shock, man. It was a culture shock for sure.
So yeah, I can kind of relate to that. How do you look at the fact that you are different these days? Because I know you looked at it differently then. Like it was kind of challenging to navigate back then, but now I know that you've embraced and you love who you are, right? So what's the difference between now and then in terms of how you view yourself and being different?
I think it's just acceptance, man. You know, you got to accept who you are. You got to be real with yourself first and foremost. And, just accept who you are and what you're here to do. I think the older that I've gotten, I understand that everybody's got crazy things going on. Everybody's got their shortcomings, their downfalls, and we still all have to wake up the next day and move forward, you know, and it makes it extremely difficult when you're constantly sitting there every day, and you know, you got self-doubt, you've got, I mean, I don't know. Self-doubt was one of my biggest issues growing up. You know, I just wasn't sure if I could do this, or, you know, if I had the capabilities, blah, blah, blah. You know, you just gotta throw that to the side and keep going. You gotta stay focused. You gotta, you know, understand like all this shit. There's a bigger purpose to it all, and we are the way we are for a reason. But you know, we have to just accept that. You can't change anything about yourself. It takes a lot of effort and mindfulness to change something about yourself. You got to think about that every day, every second of every day, to make that change. So, you know, I just leaned into, you know, who I felt I was naturally. And, you know, it just started kind of, you know, as people started noticing and seeing me do different things, you know, it was like, oh yeah, like this guy's got something special. This guy's got something. And, you know, I think that's why I'm in the position I'm in today, because I was able to just lean more into myself.
Actually, man, I'll be honest, you know, that's really beautiful to me, right? Because what we're talking about is phases of our development.
Of course.
And many times, people in our immediate environments might not necessarily understand us while we're on our journey, right? And your father, one thing your father taught me as a mentor was that, you know, it is often our most difficult challenges, right? That offer us our greatest growth. And I'm like, wait a minute, man, that's way too simple to make all that sense. To make all that damn sense, you know?
That's crazy. People spend their whole lives trying to understand things as opposed to just accepting and experiencing.
Yes.
You don't have to understand why.
Yeah.
Why are we made of flesh and bones? Why do we have these veins going through and the blood pumps it? And you know, all these scientists and these doctors want to understand why.
Yes.
But the most important thing is that it is.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like it works.
Yeah.
And it moves.
Now, you know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
That reminds me of algebra.
Oh yeah.
Algebra, right? It has these formulas that you need to apply in order to get the answer, to get the end result. And the formula doesn't make sense oftentimes, right? But it works. But it works. Just let it.
Look, when I first got into algebra and they started talking about A, B, C, I said, hold on, this is math. I thought that was just numbers.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I just had to accept.
Yes.
I can't understand.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So moving right along, bro. What are your values today? Your personal values?
Treat other people as you want it to be treated.
You
know, I put the energy out that I want to receive.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel like once I put it out there, it's gonna come back to me. And it has, man.
Yeah. And you're how old?
I'm 25.
Because the world needs to know that, you know, a native Chicagoan has that mindset. Because so often, you know, other images of, you know, us, our culture is promoted, right?
Right.
So the world needs to know that, man. Who were your early influences?
I mean, Malcolm X definitely one of them.
Okay.
Kid Cudi.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Why Ye?
Kanye is one of the biggest modern success stories the Black community has ever seen. Man's worth $6.6 billion.
Yeah.
And that's not just about the money, because money is a means to an end. Money isn't real. It's like it's a human construct for sure. And I think that people are hyper focused on it. But to be able to build a business to that magnitude, to be able to do the work that he's doing, it's something else.
Yeah.
There aren't too many people on the planet that can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Between the music and.
Well, we definitely love that he's from Chicago too, man. That's a great representation, man. That's a great representation.